Hello, everyone. Today I'll be talking to y'all about my thoughts on why we should work to change our school's attendance policies, specifically the way they structure it as what's required at a base level from administration to the teachers. So I'm sure, as y'all know, as other students at this university, there is a 5% limit on attendance, that meaning that you're allowed to miss up to 5% of your classes. Now, once you have that set in from administration, then individual professors can pick whatever policy they're going to give you, whether it be you don't have to come to class at all and just do the homework, or super strict if you miss. Even sometimes in the class I have right now, they've interpreted to be that on the second class you miss, you've already, received a letter grade reduction. So really you can only miss one class. So why I think this should be changed is for a very simple reason. It's going to be twofold. The first is because practically it doesn't work as a method of getting kids to class. And the second is because it's unjust in the way of how university works in different to previous levels of education. So to delve into the first reason, is there any evidence to the fact that attendance truly being mandatory solves the issue? After looking through a couple of sources, there's one main one I want to discuss, actually two, specifically one done in medical school by University of Washington. Whenever they did this study, they did it on medical school students, high pressure situations. These kids are studying a bunch. And what they discovered is that when you enforce attendance, there's a difference between the quality of attendance you get. So, what does that mean? X number of students are going to pass or fail this class on average, right? So, about 20% are going to fail it, 80% are going to pass it. If you require attendance, the 80% that do go to class don't really pay that much attention. And that's bared out throughout the study in ways that they'll examine the students after they come out of class and the students don't remember what happened. They'll ask the students two classes later what they just learned. They don't remember. In the study they did with the kids, same school, same type of kids, where they didn't require attendance, it bared out that even though there wasn't as much attendance as it's not required, the level of dedication that the students that did show up to class gave to the class was substantially higher, with over 70% of the kids who actually went to the class being able to walk out of the classroom and answer basic questions about what was taught. And later on, when it comes to the finals, grades improved in the class that wasn't required to attend. And that proves one of two things. That's also backed up by another study. Specifically, let me pull that one up here. Does mandatory attendance improve student performance by Daniel R. Munger? That study proves one base thing that we all assume with attendance. If you go to class, you do better, which is true. But if the question is, how can we get kids to class and to actually appreciate their time in class? The truth is that forcing them to go doesn't functionally work. If you make me wake up at 8:30 in the morning, and I'm sure y'all get this too, I'm not going to be paying as much attention if I wanted to come as if I didn't want to go. And if I don't go, that's on me. And that gets to my second point. Why do we force kids and why we should be doing it to begin with? At a base level, this isn't high school. College is an experience that is expensive, either through scholarship or through parents or through students working hard to get here. We're functionally adults. And I don't think it's fair, both to the student and to their education, to say that, oh, because you missed three classes, despite however well you may do on your exam, however much more you might know than someone who went to all the classes, you get a B, flat rate. Not only is that unfair, but it doesn't treat students as the adults paying for an education that they are. It doesn't treat the parents as adults paying for an education that they are. There's teachers that will set an attendance policy saying, if you miss three classes, doesn't matter for what reason, you get a B, even if it's excused absences. To me, that, and I could feel, I hope that a lot of students might feel the same. That's an abuse of the way the system works. It's treating us as if this is high school, as if we're not paying for this education, as if we can't make informed decisions and life happens and can't show up to class. And that's something that even students at this very university have talked about. Specifically, the Daily Gamecock made an article calling for changing that attendance policy because of the frustration of students on campus dealing with and without attendance policies that change from professor to professor, inconsistently making their lives harder. Where, in fact, in the article, it's mentioned there's a student who had COVID, missed four classes, nothing she can do about it. The school policy is telling her not to show up to class. Then the professor docks her a letter grade. because the school says one thing, promotes one thing, don't go to class if you have COVID, makes sense. But then the back end allows professors to make their own policies, which are arbitrary and frankly, academically dishonest. Once more, my level of education, how much dedication I put into a class, is bared out in my grades. Did I do my homework? Did I do well in the exam? What doesn't bear that out is, did I miss 3 classes? As for that, I have one final source I do want to share with y'all, and that is the impact of attendance on among college students. This is a study that combines all the things I was talking about, where they looked at a group of students and they followed them for 4 years. And they made sure that the students they were following in group A always took classes that didn't require attendance, and group B always took classes that did require attendance. And one of the main things they discovered was that in group B, the ones that had to go to attendance required classes, they realized that although they went to class more often, the level of failure and dropout rate between the two groups is actually the same. Meaning that just because you made the kid come to class, they might even have better grades, but that doesn't mean they're going to keep going through school. Fundamentally, there's a larger issue about kids who won't learn that is outside of the control of forcing them into classrooms. So, on the 2 points, that being that it's unfair to us as people who are paying for our education to be made to go to class and not treat our grades fairly. And also, it doesn't work. There's not much evidence, especially in academic literature, stating that forcing kids to go to class makes them any better or worse at school. All right, that's enough of me yapping. I'd love to get into some questions. One question I do have for y'all to start it off is, how do y'all feel about this? I know y'all are my change agents. You are the people at the university who can make a difference with this sort of stuff. Talk to your professors. How do you feel about the 5% rule? The you can miss 2 classes, then all bets are off.
Personally, I'm with you. I think we need to change it. I saw something today, actually, and it was just saying with that policy, and I think you mentioned it too, it just makes us more apt to not want to go, honestly. So I think changing it, allowing us to go when we need to, if we can't, like, also in one of my classes, the professor's like, even if you have like you want to go to a funeral, it's non-excused absence and he's not going to count it. And I'm like, I just think that's ridiculous. I don't know why that is a thing. So I'm all aboard for what you're trying to do.
And I think what you just
Um,
mentioned is sort of hitting the nail on the head. There's stuff that happens that just straight up isn't covered on that. The fact that you could tell someone, yeah, your dad died, sucks. You gotta come to your name X class that you know you're not gonna remember in 4 years, and you're gonna miss your dad's. You're gonna miss a funeral. You're gonna miss an important
Exactly.
birthday, a wedding. To me, that's a sort of an unexcusable, approach to attendance.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think as long as you're doing well in school, like your grades are good, you should be allowed to skip class or something because you're not going to class, but you're focused because your grades are showing that you're studying other stuff. So I think as long as you have good grades, I mean, going to class shouldn't be mandatory to you. I think the policy is supposed to be like the people who are not doing well in school should they are supposed to attend class because their grades are not showing that they are focused in class. But everyone who's doing well, I mean, there's no need to because it means that they are studying.
Yeah, and I feel like I would even make the argument that if you choose not to go to class and you do poorly, that's on you. You're making that choice, and hey, I respect that choice, but don't be angry when you fail the exam. And I feel like the fact we have exams, we have like quizzes, we have this assignment, prove that I don't need to go to the class to study up, to do this online course, to get ready to do this presentation, then execute the presentation, right? I know there's some kids in our group who hadn't done the assignments, they're not here right now, and they didn't participate, they didn't go to class, if you will, and they're going to get the grade or drop that corresponds with that. And that's fine. That's respectable. Like you can do what you want. I feel like grading a class based on your attendance is academically dishonest. Because if I go to class no times a year, but I get a 100 on every assignment you give me, fundamentally, I know the class, I know the content, and I can present it.
Yeah, and also just the point that you made, it's just a step. Like if they could also implement something like that, where if you have above a certain grade, attendance isn't mandatory anymore. But if you are failing, then you're forced to go or abide by the 3 misses like we have currently. So I think that could just be a step if they're not going to fully remove the policy. I think that would be something interesting.
Yeah, I'm not like an extremist in this sort of topic. I feel like there is definitely some common ground to reach because there are classes that like require
Yeah.
discussion-based classes where you got to talk. And I understand having a very restrictive policy there,
Hmm.
but like in your economics courses, for example, where it's mostly math, in your math courses where it is math, um, it shouldn't be focused on getting butts in the seats. I feel like often school administrators might get caught up in trying to get the grades as high as they can, and they will perhaps, I guess, leave people behind. And like you said, a funeral. That's a once in a lifetime thing that I don't deserve, you don't deserve, no one deserves to get docked just because something like that happens to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I was gonna ask was, has there been like an implementation of a positive thing rather than a negative thing? So say you go to all of them, do they give you extra credit? Has that ever been a thing?
I
Or
had a
do you not?
professor that did that, which I thought made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
As
Like that's
he
what
did,
makes more sense rather than punishment.
yeah, he did like a thing where if you go to all the classes and you like participate, even though it's not mandatory, that you get like I think 5% boost,
Yeah,
which is
see, and
worth it.
yeah, that's more incentive than punishment for sure to go to class is to get a extra credit. So
Yeah, it's like with the surveys. I know some professors will try to dock students for not doing the surveys at the end of
yeah,
courses. That's
yeah.
not, that's a little insane. Like
No, it
even,
is absolutely.
most professors have adapted being like, hey, I'll give extra credit if you do the reviews. And that, I mean, I'm doing the review, I
Hmm.
think Theophilus, you already did the review. So it goes to
We are
show that
trying
if
to
you,
say, we are trying to say going to class shouldn't be mandatory.
hmm,
That's what
Yep.
you're trying to say.
yeah, I think that the carrot works better than the stick. If you don't require it, but if you give students reasons to come, that being stellar attendance gets 5 extra points on the final course grade. You're gonna notice that you're gonna get more people showing up than if you just said, nah, what you get a B if you don't show up.
Exactly.
How about my argument that I just gave? Um, that the students that are doing well are the ones who are allowed to, I mean, to go to class whenever they want to. And then everybody who's not doing well in that class is supposed to be in class. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
What
feel
do
like
you think?
that makes sense. I would personally only disagree a little bit because I feel like if you want to do poorly in the class, you have the right to do poorly on the class.
Yeah.
But that's just a personal belief I have, and I would understand if someone said that like, well, the institution wants to promote, doing well, and I
Mhm.
feel like it is a good middle ground to say, well, if you've proven if you're scoring above like let's say a B plus, clearly
Yeah.
you're not, a problem student. If
Hmm.
you're failing, clearly you're a problem student. So I could understand creating safety rails in that sort of situation, which makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I hope that we have reached the proper time requirements on this. I want to thank both of y'all for participating, for hearing me out. And no joke, if you ever get the chance to talk to an administrator about this, bring it up. I had an issue with this topic some time ago, and uh, I think it is genuinely an important thing that affects all of us on campus. Like you said, a funeral like that to me is insane. Someone can get penalized for something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Thank you all so much. I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop
Thank
recording
you.
right now.